Welcome, guys. Welcome to Flutter Mumbai. Hey, today this is Yash Adulka, and I would like to welcome you all to Flutter Mumbai. Flutter Mumbai Engage Extended. As you all know, this is the extension of the Flutter Engage event that has happened. So today is your host Yash Adulka, and I would like to show you the contents of today's event. So first of all, this is a poster, and welcome. So this is the event schedule today. So the first event is the introduction of Flutter Engage Extended. The second event is the Flutter Engage recap, where we are going to tell you about what exactly has happened in Flutter Engage and give you a short highlights about it. This is going to be done by Mr. Aditya Sutar. The third session is going to be on the custom paint and generative art in Flutter. This has been actually a hot topic since a long time, but a lot of people don't know about it. So this is going to be taught us by Deven Joshi. And next will be the Q&A session. You can also, if you want, you can also ask questions on our Twitter hashtag, that is hashtag AskFlutterMumbai. And these questions will be answered today by Mr. Chris Sells. And then there will be an end note and the surprise is there from Flutter Mumbai to all the Flutter developers present in the world. So our today's speakers, as you all know, is one Mr. Deven Joshi and secondly Mr. Chris Sells. Deven Joshi is actually been a speaker since a long time. He has been working in Flutter, has been contributing since more than 1 year. He has also won the award as in the Hack 19, and he has also contributed a lot in the generative arts in Flutter. Mr. Chris Sells is actually the product manager in Google, and he has been working in Flutter since last 2 to 3 years. For Q&A, you can post your questions on hashtag Ask Flutter Mumbai and hashtag Flutter Mumbai on Twitter and Instagram. You can also follow us on different platforms. We have been present on we conduct our meetups on our meetup platform named Flutter Mumbai Community. You can get all our events and sessions that have been conducted in meetup, the videos of these sessions on the YouTube platform. We can also discuss with us about different problems that you face and also we face while developing in Flutter. All these discussions are happening in Telegram group. We have very good members who continually try to discuss the new problems and discuss some topics that have become new in Flutter and new updates of the Flutter. If you want, you can also tag us and ask us questions on Twitter. We'll surely like to answer you on that platform. Thank you, guys. So this was my session. And now I would like to welcome Mr. Aditya Sutar, who is going to talk us about the Flutter Engage recap session. So I would like to welcome him. Welcome, Aditya.
Hi. Yeah, hi, Ash.
So can you please tell us a small gist about your talk?
Yeah, so it's basically a short recap of like what exactly happened in Flutter Engage. So we have seen a lot of things like Flutter has rolled out on Flutter Engage event. So
Okay,
I think let's directly move on to a presentation. That will be.
sure, definitely. So I will leave and let.
Yeah. So yeah, so basically Flutter is released their 2.0 version on the Flutter Engage event. So Flutter is focus is actually the Flutter focus is being portable, which means you can publish your app on Windows, Mac OS, Linux, web, and Android and iOS. Yeah. So on Flutter Engage, Flutter also released the stable web support in stable in there. They also release more plugins, interactive scroll bars. As we can see, there are lot of functions right now available in a web. Yeah, so Flutter is released the all the stable versions on all the system platforms like iOS, Android, web, Windows, and Mac OS. Yeah, so there are a couple things also launched on Flutter on Flutter Engage. One is one of these is Google AdSense, which is right now available in beta. Then there is a support for foldable phones in Flutter. Then, as we can say, Dart is on sound null safety in Dart. Then Google Pay is in Flutter right now. Then there is also Ubuntu support, and also Toyota is Toyota Informative Systems powered by Flutter. Yeah, now there are these are the platforms which are available on Flutter, which is built on Flutter by Google, which is Google One, GPay, NextHub, Stadia, AdMob, Cloud Search, and Google Analytics. Yeah, so there is a few of best Flutter web examples which are like one of them is a Flutter Folio. You guys can go and check on like the Flutter Folio. Yeah, there is another one, one of the best example of Flutter web, which is Flutter Plasma. There is one URL you guys can go and check. Like we can see there are a lot of. Okay, yes, can you like go back?
Yeah, so hi Adi. So like I have seen this Flutter Plasma, like
Okay.
it is very good. They have shown different animations and in Flutter Web actually.
Am I audible? I think there is
Yeah,
something in
you're
there.
audible. You're audible. Hello?
Hello.
Adi, you're audible. You're properly audible.
Hey guys, looks like there is some problem with Aditya. Okay, so let me continue and let me add Yash also. So we have planned few things for you, like let's do some kind of conversation instead of just showing you what was the topic. So Yash, what do you think about the Flutter 2.0? Are you going to use Flutter 2.0 or you're good to go with your own Flutter version that was 1.2?
Yeah. So Flutter 2.0 is actually very good. What I'll say is that because there have been a lot of major upgrades in Flutter 2.0. But another thing
Okay.
what I saw is that with new issues that have been like solved and merged with it, but there are some problems that have been also faced by new members. So you can say like I have actually joined it and I'm trying it because in Flutter 2.0 there was null safety and other features which are very good. And the
Yeah.
recent projects that I've been doing, they have actually helped us in putting up the logic and then connecting the Firebase. At that point, the logical programming is very good in that. So that is true. But then while working in that position, when a new beginner joins with the Flutter 2.2, so it is a bit difficult. That's what I have faced over here. What was your
Okay.
experience about Flutter 2.2? Can you tell us something great?
Yeah, so when they okay, so I'll tell you one thing what I did. When they released Flutter 2.0, so actually one of my friend who is my colleague also, Piyush, he upgraded his screen. I mean, this Flutter SDK, and there were lots of problems with that. Like for a rare case, that is the raise button. So raise button was deprecated, and instead of that, I guess we have elevation buttons.
Yeah.
So because of that, whole code base was breakdown, and we have to do some migrate and fix. So we have some commands that is given in Flutter upgrade, but again, that were not so much scalable as compared. So because of all those things, what I did not upgrade my the main Flutter SDK. What I did, I downloaded another SDK in another folder, and I upgraded that to 2.0, and then I used that. So right now I'm using Flutter 2.0, that another SDK folder to build my web application and macOS application. Yes, I'm using that, but not in my main folder. So
Well, that
that is
actually
the
goes
reason.
with me too.
Yeah.
That happens with me too because like when I'm working with Flutter 2.1 and a new feature, another system completely. Because the project that
Yeah.
have been completely made, we can't transit it directly to the new
Right,
version.
right. So that is
But
that is one a major problem that can be happen to a lot of people. That is a migration, because there are lots of packages and plugins which are not yet migrated. So that might create some problem with for us. But yeah, we have a good good news for us. that today I got to know that almost more than 2,500 packages have been upgraded to null safety. So yeah, that is a kind of community work that people did, and I guess that is one more step forward to Flutter 2.0. And I'm very excited, and I guess I would be using Flutter 2.0 in my main stable branch, might be incoming April or May. So yeah.
Well, sure, definitely. Like we have been waiting to know how exactly it works, and do share your experience with us too.
Yeah.
So with Flutter
Okay.
2.0, yeah. So with Flutter 2.0, I have heard that there have been new commands that have been introduced from Dart itself. Like there has been Dart migrate and Flutter fix. What do you can you suggest something about that?
So haven't used that very much. So I was giving a talk in JDG Lawrence, and at that time I was actually preparing something related to Flutter 2.0, and so basically I was trying to do a Flutter Octopus, and for that I was trying on one of my project which is open source known as let me okay, so Fontism. Okay, let me show you. Let me share my screen, and I'll show you its power. So share screen. Okay. Don't tap on it. Let me know if you can see this screen.
Yeah, it is visible. It's actually.
Okay, perfect. So now see the magic behind it. So what I'll do, I want to test if this Acme font is good for my project or not. So what I'll do, I'll click on Acme, and you can see a few changes in your project. Okay, similarly, I can choose this Aquilina, and you can see the changes. Similarly, we have a lots of fonts. For example, Black Ops one. So this is one of example and one of my open source project which I use very much for myself to test out how my application will look like by using this font. Okay, so my idea was to convert this into Flutter 2.0, but that failed miserably. And for that, I used Flutter upgrade and this Dart migrate and Flutter fix command, but they didn't work for me. So yeah. So right now that is thing. That's why I said I might be using Flutter 2.0 in my stable channel from May or April.
Well,
What
as
what
again,
are your experience on these things? So you have
uh,
been working on Flutter for a long time, so you might have some experience.
so as I said, like Flutter 2.0 is actually pretty nice. Like with the major upgrades that Flutter give, it is actually very good. But like actually before me, like what I can see is that our audience is actually like Flutter 2.0 because I can see all the comments and they have been saying that they have actually transformed to Flutter 2.0. A lot of people are transmitted. They are using. Even the beginners are using the Flutter 2.0. And in my experience, Flutter 2.0 is actually very good. It's just that you need some patience with it and try with the documentation, and you can actually go very nice. If I'm not wrong, like we in the presentation from the Adi itself, like he has added the Flutter Plasma.dev, which is actually made in Flutter 2.0. If you can see, like I'd like to share again, if possible.
Yeah,
Flutter
sure.
Plasma. I'll just share, add it.
Yeah, there was an example of showcase, if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
Okay.
So today is actually not just Flutter Plasma, but there have been a lot of projects that have been going to showcase today, and there is also a
Okay.
surprise for audience as well. So if possible, I'll.
Oh, so again, stay tuned till last to get that surprise. Okay.
Sure.
This is pretty cool.
Yeah, actually.
You can see a lot of animation that is happening in one frame.
And we also have a topic today on animations. So like audience are actually going to enjoy it.
Nice. Wow.
Yeah. So very actually made by Mr. Felix. He has actually worked very nice in that.
Yeah, right. It was awesome, man.
Actually. So what do you
Okay,
suggest about the animations and Flutter Plasma? What are your thoughts about it?
well, I'm stunned by watching this video, which you just saw. A lot of animation that is going into same frame. A lot of widgets are being updated in the same frame, and still I can't see any lag into that. So I guess that is one of the biggest advancement or biggest advantage of using Flutter 2.2. And I guess we are some bit of, I mean, we are closer to make games in Flutter. If if we can have that much of animation that is going into one frame, then yeah, probably we can make games also.
Well, when I actually see these kind of websites and applications, I actually feel that the main purpose of Flutter has actually completed. Because if you know the tagline of Flutter is like beautiful UI animations for different platforms. And when we
For
can create
different
these kind of animations, it is actually the purpose has been completed for Flutter. That's true.
right.
Also,
So I guess
about
that we have done very much progress in case of Flutter 2.0, and yeah, and that's why we are doing Flutter Engage for so many times, right?
also from the recap, like a tooltip for audience, like if you have like old repositories and if you want to transition to the new repositories, you can use the dart migrate command and the whole project will go into null safety. And the second announcement from the Flutter Engage is that if you have any deprecated properties and deprecated fields in your widgets, and if you don't want it deprecated, you want it to be updated to the latest one, you can use the Flutter fix command and it will automatically get converted to the new latest properties that have been changed. So deprecation goes away. You don't have to worry about it. That's it. So with
Okay,
this,
so okay, I have one question that when deprecation, so do you really think that that command works very well? It will remove all the problems which we have due to the upgradation of Flutter 2.0.
well, yes, actually, Flutter has actually made it with purpose. So I believe that it is possible. But then again, like I will stick in a statement is that for the audiences, go with the documentation, go slowly. The transition is a bit difficult. It's actually very difficult because even I have tried to transit, and whenever I transit or the new upgrade comes, my habit is to actually jump on that upgrade and I mess up with the project. But then go slowly and you'll surely learn like how to work on that command, how to work on that
Yeah,
project.
right. Don't forget to not having a look to the documentation, because the documentation of Flutter is much more, very good as compared to other technologies that in market. And I love to see the documentation of the Dart and Flutter as well, because we see a lot of examples. We get to see how those functions can work, how those widgets can work. We have lots of example covering every other aspect. So the documentation is very good, and if you are going to start Flutter 2.0, then yeah, do visit dart.dev and flutter.dev for documentation.
Definitely. So,
Yeah.
Vic, I would like to ask you, like as you said, you have tried Flutter Octopus. So, how was your experience in that? Because running one code on different platforms at one time, I think it is a bit difficult. What are your suggestions for that?
It was difficult when I was not using Flutter. But now we know that we can run our Flutter on multi platforms. I mean, Android, iOS, Windows, Mac OS, Linux, and embedded. So, do you really think that it is hard to make a Flutter Octopus right now? It was hard when there was no Flutter, but it is not hard right now. And I'm going to show. Also, I have also one small surprise for you guys, and that I will show when I will do a Q&A with Deven and Chris, and that is very related to Flutter 2.0. So please stay tuned.
We'll surely be waiting for that. Um,
Yeah.
from the audience, like there are some questions from audience. If it is okay with you, I would like to show some questions.
Yeah, let's have some questions. So
The first is the basic, very basic questions is that we can use Flutter for web development. Well, that is
yes.
actually true, but then what we say is that how is the working? Like I think so. Like 2 or 3 months ago, the Flutter for web development was not stable and it was not used for production. And
Well,
now,
it is not usable for production as well, I guess. I mean, that was actually told by one of the product manager from Google. But what do you think? Can we go ahead and try it out in production? I mean, can we show that courage?
I think yes, because the reason is that Flutter has actually like showed some projects which are in production right now, and they are running on Flutter Web. So there is an example that I would like to show today, which has been shown in the Flutter Engage itself. So this example was actually made by the QnA company, and a lot of
Can you
people
share
must have.
screen also?
Yes, I'm actually sharing the screen for that. So yeah, so so this is the Flutter Folio project. So Vivek, have you ever used like the scrapbook in your school days? You must
Yeah.
have tried the scrapbook. So this
Yes.
is the virtual scrapbook. Like you don't have to carry a book anywhere. Just use the Flutter Folio. It is made by Skinner company with the integration of Flutter. So I would like to show this video that we have shown.
Hi, everyone. Here at GSkinner, we've created a variety of Flutter apps that compile to and ran on multiple platforms. But for this project, we wanted to go beyond that and build something that purposefully considered the norms, user expectations, input devices, and idioms for each platform to create an app that truly felt at home on every device. We also wanted to leverage the unique strengths of each platform to power a creative workflow. After some brainstorming, we decided to build a scrapbooking app called Flutter Folio. Let's take a closer look at how the app works on different devices. Mobile devices are great because they're portable, follow us everywhere, and they usually have a camera built in. Given that, we focus the small screen experience around capturing content. Let's say you were on a walk and you bumped into Tim and his rabbit Carl. You could use the mobile-friendly UI to quickly navigate to an existing scrapbook and reminisce about shared experiences. Or navigate to your furry friends folio and snap a few pictures of Carl to add in later. Of course, larger screens provide a lot more space and improved precision, which makes them ideal for creative work, like editing a scrapbook. So when you get back from your walk, super excited to add in your new photos of Carl, you can fire up the app, maximize it via the native controls and the custom title bar, and use your scroll wheel or arrow keys to navigate to a scrapbook you're looking for. While editing, you can use desktop-specific idioms like multi-select, native menus, keyboard shortcuts, context menus, and scroll wheel zoom. But of course, not all large screens are the same. When working on a touch device, the UI adapts in a variety of ways, such as providing larger hit areas and exposing functionality through contextual buttons instead of right-click menus. Last but not least, we wanted to target the web. These days, browsers are capable of almost everything you can do in a native app, so the full app runs there as well. But the web is unique in the ease with which content can be shared. We leverage that strength to let you share a read-only version of your scrapbook. For example, to share your amazing new page with Tim and Carl, so they can follow along in real time as you make new updates. This URL is actually live right now if you want to go check out Carl. Of course, we've barely skimmed the surface today, so I'd like to invite you to visit flutter.gskinner.com, where you'll find more info, source code, and links to the app. We also learned a ton building this, and we're excited to share that knowledge on our blog and via Twitter. Ultimately, we were able to build an app that runs great and feels at home on 3 form factors, 5 OSs, and the web, while reusing over 95% of our code. We built Flutter Folio with best practices in mind. You can check out the source code to start making your apps platform adaptive today.
Okay, this is open source also, so we can see the codes what they have written.
Yes. So this is
That's
the
pretty
thing,
nice.
and it is actually work. It is open source as well as it works very smoothly. So for the new people who wants to learn the new Flutter techniques, you can surely refer this GitHub code and surely learn with it. So Vivek, I would like to ask you a question that I have actually
Yes.
heard that you have created a lot of projects using Flutter and different technologies. So what my
Yeah.
question, there are two questions actually. First is how was your experience with Flutter? And second is what is the UI flow or the workflow that you follow while working on so many projects at a single time?
Okay. Can you repeat that second question?
So what happened is that I have heard you have done a lot of work. So what my question is like, how do you stay motivated and what kind of workflow that you follow for working on multiple projects at the same time? What is your
Okay.
technique for working on the projects?
Okay. The first thing we should not tell everybody that we are working on multiple projects. Okay. Because of your NDAs and all those things. Okay. And apart from that, how I get motivated to work on multiple projects. Because I love to do the community work. Okay. I love to engage with people. I love to solve people's problem, and I love to get my questions also solved from the people. So yeah, that is, I guess, that is my motivation towards it, and that's why I do a lots of open source thing also. I'm trying to do some open source contributions also. I have done some sort of open source contributions like the fontism just I showed you. And apart from that, I'm gonna share one of my projects today itself that I'm gonna reveal during the Q&A. So it's basically community and people who are motivating me to do more things and nothing else. And one more thing, how is the workflow that we do? I mean, that I follow. So basically, I have developed was a small workflow when I was working with my very first initial company, that was Filia, and I follow that till now because I know that is going to give me some outputs. So basically, I try to use my notebook everywhere. You can see I have my notebook right now with me. Okay.
Um,
So yeah, so I'm the guy who writes down everything on notebook. Okay. Try to figure out everything on notebook. Try to figure out the errors which I will get on the notebook. Once I feel that yeah, I'm prepared for the coding, then I go to code. And I guess that is very important thing of my strategy or workflow, you can say.
wow, that's actually very good. Like even I actually try to use the notebook and I try to get motivated, but it's very difficult for college students. What I feel.
Oh yes, okay, I can see that you have lots of these assignments also.
Yeah.
Okay,
So there is
so
one just last question today. This is asked by Mr. Satyajit Roy. So what is asking about the SEO issue in Flutter web apps? Like, is there a way to fix it? Have been invented or discovered? Like, can you share your insights on this?
so I have not worked on SEO till now, and not even in Flutter and not even in the normal web apps. So what I'll do, let's wait for the Chris to answer this question. What is it?
Oh,
Yeah. So guys, we have Chris Sales who is coming on the show for the Q&A, and at that time we are going to raise this question to him and we will ask how can we solve our SEO problems. So stay tuned with us.
definitely. So,
Okay.
like,
So what's next?
so we actually have our Deven session today. It is
Oh,
being
wow.
added, and today what you learn is that about the generative arts and the designs that we use in Flutter. Well, generative arts is a concept that has been actually known by a lot of people, but to use it and the use animations was a bit difficult. Or what I'll say is not difficult, but it was not known to many people, like how to use it. So today Deven is here and he's going to tell us like how to use the session. So let's move on to that.
Okay.
So I'll add into the stream. So this is the video.
Okay. Let me go backstage and
Quite
please carry
hard
on.
for quite a few of us. And that's why it made sense to talk about something not as serious as the usual topics. Welcome to Generative Art with Flutter. The last year has been quite hard for quite a few of us. And that's why it made sense to talk about something not as serious as the usual topics like architecture, state management, fancy UI, etc., but about a more but a more enjoyable topic as a whole. I have been wanting to give a talk about generative art since I got a lot of questions after I posted a lot of stuff on Twitter, but I never really had the time. And so when the team reached out to me, I was like, yeah, let's do it. So before we start, here's a bit about me and what I do. Okay. So I'm a Google developer expert for Flutter, and I work at Stream, crafting chat and feeds SDKs for many platforms. And I started Flutter back in alpha, and back in alpha there wasn't a lot of tooling, there wasn't a lot of documentation, and back then I was like, let's make sure other people don't have the same problems I do. So I started writing a lot of Medium articles and stuff like that. And thankfully, it gained momentum. It was helpful to people, and I'm glad to have been a part of it. So I gradually met the community, and it is quite a large it is quite a large help to be of having the support of the community no matter what we do. And yeah, and other than that, I've worked on Android before, but Flutter still remains my favorite. So now let's go to the main topic at hand, which is what is generative art? So for some reason, people seem to have this misconception that, okay, so generative art is just art drawn on a computer. But that doesn't really make sense if you think of it. For example, it's not just a replacement of a canvas. For example, on an actual canvas, if you have a stroke of a brush from point A to point B, in the computer, you would just replace that with a digital canvas and a line from A to B. But that's not what generative art is about. So there are multiple styles to this, but most generative art tries to kind of, we can use more effects, we can invoke better mathematical functions, and we can legitimately have the art create itself. So we're not really creating art a lot of times, we're discovering it. So it becomes it becomes a very fulfilling thing because you're kind of discovering something that's been hidden in nature, and you're just amplifying it to something that humans would like. So it's quite a nice deal. So it's not a replacement for a normal canvas. It is so it is an autonomous kind of art, autonomous generation of art in itself. And you do not need to be you do not need to have a very good artistic sense in order to become a person who creates generative art. So the other thing that's required there is a bit of math, but since like when you actually do it, there's instant changes in math, and you get a lot of kind of artwork immediately. So even in the math side, I have not seen a lot of people hate, even though I particularly am not good at math. And regarding my artistic skills, I have one thing to show you. Last year I got the iPad Pro with the Apple Pencil thing, and my brother, who's an actual artist, he kind of drew the first one, which is like a real picture, and the second was mine, which is quite embarrassing. But the point is, I am, even though I do not have the color palette or the actual understanding of a lot of the stuff, I can do it because it's not really about creating stuff. It's about discovering it. So we're not really, you don't need to have an extensive idea, like extensive idea of something of art and everything to actually go ahead and create something like this. So like for example, even recently I was looking to hang something. I was looking to hang a few portraits around the house, and I like even then I just got out a few of the generative art things. So I just got them painted on an actual canvas, and it was quite fun to make as well. So regardless of whatever happens, I still have artwork that I made in my house. So we kind of need to start with how generative art itself began in Flutter. So it was started by Robert Felker. So Robert's a good friend of mine, and he started with a series called D-Art, I think. And so D-Art was a series that was showcased in quite a lot of places. Flutter officially made a video on it as well. And what happened is it kind of exploded. And I remember it being played in Flutter Europe. It was all over the thing. And I was genuinely impressed because the thing is, I never believed I could make art to begin with. And I was like, let's just give it a try. But one thing we kind of need to know before we go into this is that Robert's style and my style aren't really the same. They're kind of different in slightly they're kind of different in a few ways. So his art would be the first style, which I call creative. So creative would be a style where you are genuinely envisioning. So, for example, Robert has a good sense of artwork. He's done quite well at even recently he made really beautiful portraits of cities and everything with Flutter. So he has a good sense of art in general. So he's made so he envisions them and he draws them, and that's quite a good thing to that's quite an amazing thing to do as well. But my style is slightly different, which I call inherent. And inherent styles would have a second type of thing, which is that we're not really creating any kind of artwork, we're discovering it. So if you kind of know if you know this pattern, this is the Mandelbrot set. The Mandelbrot set was, you could actually call the Mandelbrot set the first kind of generative art as a whole, because if you don't know about this, it was basically a pattern that was found in the while just plotting a function of complex numbers. And you may have seen those videos where it goes like infinitely down, like not infinitely, but like it's an infinitely repeating pattern. So you could just go deeper and deeper and deeper, and it would just never be the same. You would just find more and more beauty of it. So this in itself was it was kind of the first kind of generative art. But so this piece itself was one of my more recent sets called the Mandelbrot set, where I tweaked the Mandelbrot set itself to give us more beautiful patterns. So these are not, so whatever you see on the screen, this is not something that I added a layer on top of. There's no layers, there's no nothing. This is a purely mathematical generated thing. And because of that, it's been because of that, you're discovering something, and that kind of gives you a bit more joy when creating it as well, because you find these things like what you might feel quite accidentally. So before we actually start going deep into a lot of this stuff, we need to understand what is how do we draw this? So in every kind of framework, in every kind of platform, there's usually a Canvas API. A Canvas API allows you to like paint something. So essentially draw a line, draw a circle, draw anything, even draw an image itself onto the canvas, so the digital canvas. So Flutter allows us to use custom paint. The custom paint widget allows us to access the Flutter canvas, and we use the custom painter to actually draw elements on the canvas. So for example, if you can see the code on the right, the custom paint widget is what we would actually use, and we would pass along a custom painter to actually paint the things on the canvas. And yeah, so we can draw pretty much everything we like on it. And the thing is, we are not going to go super in detail about this, because this is not going to be a very long talk, but there should absolutely be a more more detailed kind of brief on this as well. So with let's say what Robert created, there was a lot of so you needed to know a lot of stuff about the canvas in itself, or much more complex mathematical models. And what we're going to be doing is going to be quite simple. We're not going to be working with like very complex things. We're just going to be using dots, and like in the example we're going to be using, we're going to be using dots. So the Mandelbrot set I showed you is going to be the thing we're going to make today. And because of that, we're just going to use the draw circle, and nothing else. So if you actually look into the custom painter, see the custom painter has two methods, paint and should repaint. So paint is where we actually draw things. We can draw circles, we can draw lines, we can draw rectangles, and whatever it is. So we get the size that is there, and essentially we just draw whatever we want from, let's say, point A to point B. The should repaint is a method that gets called when the widget itself is rebuilt. And these things, painting, can sometimes be quite expensive if it's a very detailed drawing like ours would be. So we do not have an easy way to so should repaint gives us a way to decide should the widget itself rebuild. So for example, if we decide, okay, some parameters have changed, let's rebuild, then it will be then the paint itself will be called again. And if we decide no, it should not be rebuilt, then the paint function will not be called, so that it would be quite a light call after that, because the earlier state gets saved. So we use a demo painter to actually paint the stuff, and we're not gonna go super detailed into the code of this thing, but it is quite a nice thing to explore quite in detail, because even though we're going to be using mathematics as our primary thing, it does you can do quite a lot, like very pretty code, very pretty art with just the functions that it offers. So I just wanted to give one quick shout out to Flutter ShapeMaker, which I just recently saw this. So Flutter ShapeMaker is a tool by Parajan, and he basically made a tool where you can just plot whatever you like, and it just gives you an output which you can feed directly into the custom paint widget. And I hadn't tried it out, and I really like the idea of it, and I think it's made in Flutter Web as well. So it's I don't know if it's super helpful at this talk, but I really wanted to give a shout out because it is quite an impressive tool. Okay, so now we can actually start out with generative art in itself, and all the pictures you see on the right and the left, they're kind of They're some of the outputs of the first set of generative art that I made. And that's not what we're going to do today, because that's slightly more tricky to explain. I will provide links at the end for you to go and see the actual code itself. So that's going to be fine. So now let's start with actually building the generative art itself. So things to keep in mind while you're doing, while you're actually trying to create stuff. So this will be an iterative process. It's not like you just enter something and it will, there's going to be a lot of trial and error, because if there was a defined procedure to this, it wouldn't be art. And ultimately what we kind of want to do is we want to establish kind of a procedure, rather an approach to how we deal with these things, rather than defining a proper ABCD step plan, because that doesn't exist. So what we saw over here, this is what we're going to be building. So let's start with the first step, which is start with a geometric structure of some kind, because usually what happens is, when you already start with a geometric structure, it gives you some ways to nicely tweak the values of the thing that already exists. So for example, this is the Mandelbrot set, and in the Mandelbrot set, so on the left is just code you can get off the internet. Like there's no modifications to it at all. It's not. So that's basically code where it just draws like a black and white Mandelbrot set. And yeah, so just sorry, before that, so just some things to keep in mind when you're making this kind of stuff. Use trigonometric functions. They're your absolute best friends. So sine, cos, tan, and atan. These four things are your absolute best friends, because they can absolutely morph any shape into like a really beautiful thing. Not cot and cosec, because they give some issues, but if that works in your case, great. And the second thing is use different shapes, sizes, and colors. What happens is you don't really want something to have the same color everywhere. Even if it's the same color, try to make it like kind of make maybe a gradient or different brightnesses and stuff like that. So we want to use different shapes, sizes, and colors. Shapes, you might alter the radii of your circles. Sizes, now that depends on what you're really trying to do. So we're trying to first alter we're going to try to make something out of the Mandelbrot set. So first we're going to start out with the Mandelbrot set itself, which is going to be, and on the left is some code. And right now this is just purely internet copied code. There's no understanding to us whatsoever, because we're not really trying to understand what it is drawing. What we are trying to understand is where can we actually tweak it to make it look prettier. So what we're trying to do is trying to see where actually can we tweak this to make us give a good result. That would be the next step. But before that, let's add some color to it. So I just took the same thing, and instead of so I just added some color to it. And if you so I am a person who loves logic very much, and I want to understand how things or why things they are. So if you want to understand what is the black part and what is the green part, in the Mandelbrot set, you kind of take one function and just repeat it again and again and again, seeing if it gives a finite value or an infinite value. Depending on if it's a finite value or an infinite value, you color it black, or depending upon the iterations, you give it a green or whatever color you want. So here I'm just giving a normal, whatever we've decided. So now we've added color to this, and now let's see kind of how to tweak it. That's So now so this is like the thing which actually kind of checks whether it is in the range. And this is quite a nice candidate. And as you go along with generative art, the main thing you learn is where can you tweak something to actually get something out of it. So over here, you see these things, which is just 4x's and 4y's multiplied. And these are really, wherever there's multiplication, these are really nice candidates. And where there's addition, they are not. So let's just try to change this x raised to 4 into x raised to 3, and in just replace 1x with a tan x. And what we suddenly get is something like this. So just with one thing, you can see the outside of it started changing, and overall it starts to look different. Right now, not very pretty, I will agree, but at the very least different. So we've learned how to actually modify something, and now we kind of want to do how do we genuinely make it look good. So what do we do? So now we've already understood, okay, so we have these x's and y's, and at this point you can basically go crazy with it. You can take it to quite a large extent, and you can add, you can substitute quite a few things in places of x's and y's. And yeah, so you can start getting like pretty amazing things with you can start like just these modifications. So for example, so this val over here is just some fine tuning. It's just a number. It's not anything different. I just added this to just have like a fine tuning constant where we can just modify how much or how little it is affected. So yeah, I just replaced a few terms over here, and again, it gives a really beautiful picture. And if you realize all these designs in the background and everything, these are not something that those are they're not just some design we slapped on. They are genuinely generated from the math within. And that's kind of a really amazing thing to realize, because these are patterns in nature. We're not adding them on, and that's quite a pretty thing. And even my first set, like all these, my first set of generative art, for example, all of these kinds of images, they follow a similar principle, because I started with a spiral. I started with a spiral and kind of tweaked some values here and there, some colors, some shapes, some sizes. And you can see, for example, these dots are small and these dots, the colors are different. All of them follow pretty much trigonometric functions, and it's a really nice thing to actually see. The first time I actually saw something like this come out was like honestly remarkable, because I never actually thought, okay, this would actually come out of it, because earlier I just had the spiral and suddenly just went to something which was like really beautiful, like something like this. And yeah, and that amazed me quite a bit. So we now have this this Mandelbrot set, which is, so we started out with a normal Mandelbrot set. We added colors. We tried to find out what is the value that we can tweak. So for example, in the original code, we saw all of this is irrelevant to you, because we're not really trying to affect the these are just like the pixel values and everything. So this part was the only part that we could actually genuinely tweak. And whenever you see something like this, that's basically a nice way to start with, because if there's multiplication, you can multiply it by sine, cos, tan, a tan, stuff like that, and that just changes changes everything without really affecting it. For example, you can still tell that it is a Mandelbrot set. And if you do it enough, you have quite amazing structures that pop out of the math. And that's the thing, all of these designs that you see, or all of these pretty things that you really see, they are directly from the math. We have not done anything that was very intentional. You can just basically patch on a million terms, multiply whatever you like, and it's kind of see what comes out. But what you must understand is that these are not just going to come out of nowhere. So you have to start with some kind of base, which will be a geometric pattern. Then you have to add on, then you have to realize, where do I tweak these kinds of values that will make it look better and kind of like behave in kind of a nicer way. Where can I add colors to this? How can I affect the shapes and sizes of whatever I'm doing? And in the end, you get like really pretty things all together. So it's not very, it's when you start out, it might be somewhat disappointing, but like in fairness, these were my first generative art things, which were, you can't really officially call them generative art because they're kind of not, but these were kind of the things I kind of randomized to do, and they look good. But the thing is, it's not something that when you kind of get the realization that whatever you just made came out of math itself, that is a different kind of realization compared to like, okay, I drew like a bunch of squares or circles randomized on a computer screen. And then what I did was I took it and I kind of animated the entire thing. So I think Remy pointed out that, okay, you could actually do a bunch of animations, and and they don't seem to work right now, but I exported a PDF, my bad. But you can find the animations on the on my CodePen, which would be this link. And so like overall, it was like just a great thing to actually break away from the work that we do and use the same code that we use on a regular basis to actually create something. And I mean, it's you just start with something that you may have seen in your CS class, and then you take it somewhere that would just not be in your wildest dreams, and you kind of start to see, because all these math tweaks that we made were pretty small and they weren't like really concerning. Like they weren't like you would hate, you would make it a very big math thing. And yeah, so I think that's it from me. You can find me on Twitter, GitHub, Medium, etc. And I mean, ultimately, it just comes down to like, you know, just trying something out for yourself, trying just doing something, and it's fine if you start out slow, but it's you may also start out like really well. So if you do manage to actually make something, send it over to me, or just like post something, tag me on Twitter. And I mean, you can, on the CodePen, you can find the original links for all this kind of art, all of this kind of art, and you can tweak, you can just tweak it right there. You can play around, and then after that, maybe you can just just either create your own CodePens and share them, or just like, you know, make canvas prints like I did for myself as well. So thank you, and I think we'll go on to the next talk now, and thank you for your time.
Okay. Hi, Deven.
Hey, how are you?
How are you? I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good.
Okay. Have you faced any time when you are just about to show some demo and something bad happened at exact that time?
Most of those bad things happen exactly at that time. Like bad things never come in good times, right? I mean, most of my company things are like even right now. I exported the presentation to a PDF so I couldn't show the animation and stuff. So it was these things come at exactly the time you don't expect them. But I mean, you kind of have to expect that.
Yeah, that happened just with me. So I was about to share the screen, but accidentally I closed that application. Okay. Okay, let me share my screen. I guess that is ready. And okay, share screen. Application window. Okay. Yeah. So I made this macOS application to ask Q&A with you and Chris Sales. So I guess it was a good thing to have this in context of Flutter 2.0. Okay. So the very first question that is been asked in YouTube right now, that how much Dart programming do you need to know before starting Flutter?
So it depends on what you've done before this. So if you have, like, for example, let's say I came from an Android background, stuff like that, or you must have come from some other thing as well. And if that is the case, then you don't really need to know that much, because Dart is quite an easy language to learn. Maybe with null safety, it might take some time, because now if you're coming over from Java, it might be slightly tricky. But overall, it is still an easy language to learn. If it is your first language, and if Flutter is your first framework in itself, then yes, then absolutely, please do some Dart before you actually start, because or else it becomes kind of hard to understand. And especially with null safety coming over, because to a new person, the question marks don't mean anything. So it becomes a bit hard to explain. So yeah, if you have already worked with a language like Kotlin or something, I mean, you can just jump on and see if you can understand it already. If you are new to this, then I would highly suggest you do some. You can go through the documentation. That's pretty good as well. There's some really good articles on Dart, or there's always some Udemy courses.
Okay. Okay, so let's start with our question that we have framed from Twitter and by myself. So very first question is, what approach to properly manage the tree checking for an application that targets several platforms? So
what exactly are you trying to do though?
Okay, so I guess that is a question, from the Twitter that I got. Okay. So there is a concept known as tree shaking in Flutter, and he is trying to ask about the strategy that we can use in case of tree shaking if we are targeting multiple platforms, for example, Mac OS, Windows, and mobile applications.
Yeah. Tree shaking, it basically happens, but so tree shaking is essentially you remove all these excess dependencies, or just all the excess material when you're kind of building the application. It really depends. I'm unsure of what exactly they're trying to do here. I think this question would be slightly better for Chris to answer, because I'm unclear on this question or what they're trying to do. If it's an obvious one, I think Chris can take it up much better than I can.
Okay.
Because I'm not really sure what exactly is been trying to do, like, is being done here.
Yeah, I had same thing with me also. So okay, no problem. So what I'll do, I'll take it to Chris Sales, and let's have with our next question, that you mentioned that you have done Android development too. So should I learn Flutter or Android for my career? So I have been asked this question by many developers, and that's why I decided to put that question in front of you.
Yeah. So here's the thing. both of these platforms have to exist, at least for now, right? Right now, even though you are writing your application in Flutter, you still kind of have the base as an Android application or an iOS application. So that base still has to be there for now. Now, since you're asking for a career, now that's a slightly tricky question, right? So Android, you're restricted to one platform, right? And when you have something like Flutter, which you can take, like, because a lot of startups I am in contact with, they want a lot of platforms done. So it makes sense for them to directly jump onto Flutter without doing Android. And especially in India, I see the startup scene is exploding, especially you have a large number of small startups where you need Android, iOS developers and everyone. So especially for an entry point, Flutter is amazing because you still don't have that amount of saturation as well with Android developers. And yeah, I mean, if like right now, I have been seeing a lot of Flutter openings, like an insane amount compared to what we were seeing earlier. So if you can see a few openings, if you think they were worth going for, I would absolutely recommend Flutter for now, because I've just been seeing much more activity recently in the smaller startups industry rather than with, let's say, just Android development, which larger companies will still go for, but that's absolutely changing.
Perfect. Okay, so we have our next question, that is, what types of applications can be made in Flutter? So types, I mean, like e-commerce application, like some website, some portfolio applications. So in that case, what types of application can be made in Flutter?
So let's break this down by platform, right? That is the best distinction, I think, here. So if you're going for Android and iOS, I mean, we have Google Pay written directly in Flutter. So I mean, that's one of the biggest applications that you can find by lines of code. So that's quite a large application. It's not just an e-commerce thing where they're just showing 10 items on a screen and some payments, but rather like an entire system behind it. So if it is even with a lot of with some native dependencies, I think those like even large applications are good. Now, where you need to absolutely focus on for let's say pure Android, like native Android and native iOS, is when really extensive native APIs come into focus. So, for example, if you're trying to do something which is an API only on Android, and so for example, let's talk about the GPS API, like, or the GNSS API, where you get the GPS data. Now, that is not present on iOS. And what happens is a lot of the data, to extract that data, you would have to write another package on Flutter to actually get it to the Flutter level. So in that sense, if you don't need an app, or you cannot build an iOS application, then it just makes sense for you to go directly to Android without having to build that bridge again and pull up the data to Flutter, like the GNSS data to Flutter as well. So if there is a cross-platform aspect to it, if there's some native dependencies are fine, that's not our issue. But if there's massive asymmetry, or if there's no plans to do the other at all, then that's fine. Now, when it comes to web and desktop, it's a slightly different story. So web, I have to commend the team. It has been improving leaps and bounds. I mean, just switching to 2.0, like because I had tried and I wasn't very impressed at before, but now it's become quite performant. Like, I genuinely like it. But so for example, with what I've seen in professionally and personally, there's two aspects to this kind of thing, which is like, let's say, I'll call it production and development. Development is great. Like, honestly, it's been better than it's ever been. Production might take some time because you have a lot of like, let's say, SEOs things. You have some things here and there which may pop up. So even then, if it fits a use case, I think it should be good to go. But on the website, I don't know. I have not tried that much, maybe. And Mac OS and Windows, Linux, I straight up have not tried, so I can't comment on it. And Mac OS and Windows, I really like the performance. I really like the performance. So a lot of the generative art things you saw today were actually rendered on macOS as well, because you get the native performance on your device as well. So I love it. I've actually created a whole bunch of like I haven't shared a lot of it, but I have these. I used to have these PS2 games, and they used to have these amazing 3D screens, and I did a lot of development trying to recreate these kinds of games with macOS and Windows as well. Maybe sometime I will share it, but I love the performance of it. With regards to APIs, I actually don't know. I haven't tried in a lot of detail, but the Flutterfolio thing gives me a lot of hope.
Right. And we all will wait for your creativity that you have done with the Windows and macOS for PS2.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So the third question is, it is related to a generative arts. So can I have these generative arts in my application, and will it affect my app's performance?
So funny that you mentioned this. I am actually about to publish a package as well, which gives a generative art background. But if you do create your own, what does happen is, see, usually this involves a lot of math. It depends on what you do, really. But if you want to do this thing, it will affect performance. You just have to make sure that you're not let's say drawing way beyond the bounds of your screen. If your screen size is for, like, let's say 400 and you're drawing 4,000 things, then there's no point in doing. So just make sure there's no excess math being calculated, regardless of what is not on screen. You try to stay within bounds. If it's not of bounds, if it's out of bounds, you just leave it. And yeah, I mean, you could make a reasonable implementation, which is what I'm trying to do. You can try to use mine, or absolutely, like, absolutely go ahead and make your own, but just make sure it is within bounds. And in that sense, it should not be very, very complex. It should not affect your app's performance. And then you can just pretty much, in a way, just cache that custom paint as well. So we don't make it a rebuild, and you should be good.
Okay. So I'm going to use your generative arts into my application.
Done.
Okay. So in contrast with that thing, I want to do some generative arts by myself. So can you suggest some references so that I can start with it and do some of it?
So the funny thing is, there's not a lot of reference in this. So there are quite a lot of like I've read some books. So you see these really nice patterns popping out of math, and these are something you see, and like I said, the Mandelbrot set or something like that. You see these usually in, let's say, your CS class or something. So these are already there, and these we just we just extract the code out of it. Now there are there was a book I forgot the name of, which had like really nice patterns associated with math. And I don't know any reference I can particularly give, but what I would suggest is just go with generic shapes that you know, right? Now, like I started with a spiral or any kind of set, like I said, and try your own modifications on it, because the thing is, it will give much more of a, like, your touch on it. Because otherwise what happens is you can just re-implement what other people have done, but it loses that unique touch that you have when making it.
Right.
So I would suggest, like, try it out yourself.
Okay, and what I'll do, I'll re-watch the video that you have uploaded. I mean, that we have given to the Flutter Mumbai, and I guess that will be a good starting point for me to starting
And
with the
I
generative
think
art.
I actually have an article on generative art as well on my Medium. So on the other set of generative art, with which where I've explained what I've done. So I think that should also be helpful.
Okay, that's nice. So I can so right now I have Medium, I have YouTube video to start with to start with the generative arts. Okay,
Yeah.
and let me share this your Medium and Twitter IDs to people who are here. Okay, so they can follow you on Twitter as well as on the Medium. So guys, this is Deven Joshi's Twitter. You can follow him, and okay, he do a lots of tweets that are well related to Flutter, and I guess that will be helpful for us if you're learning. And this is Deven Joshi's Medium page, that is medium.com/dev.in, and you can have a lots of Medium articles that can help you that can help you in learning Flutter. and Generative Arts too. So go ahead and do follow him.
Sounds good, guys. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Bye bye, Joshi. Bye bye, Deven. See you. Okay. So now I'm left with one of the uh, what I'll say. I don't have words for him. Okay, but I do have a very small thing for him. Okay, that he says he enjoys long walks and long talks about the technologies and Flutter on the beaches. Okay, so guys, let me welcome you, Chris Sales, on the screens, the product manager from Google.
Hi.
Hi, Chris. How are you?
I'm good. It's a bright and shiny 9 in the morning. What time is it there?
So it's 9:40, 9:46 in India.
Well, thank you for
9:46 p.m. Yeah.
bridging the time zone gap with me this morning.
Thank you for coming so early and thank and helping us because the questions which I am going to ask you will definitely help all the people who are going to learn Flutter or who are working on Flutter.
Great.
Yeah. So just give me a few minutes and I have to update few things on the application that I was just showing. Okay. And then we are good to go.
Great.
Okay, before that, I have, I mean, this question I asked to every person who works with Flutter. So I will throw that question to you also, that how you get started with Flutter. I mean, what motivated you to, to work with Flutter?
So in my job, I've been product manager at Google for more than 6 years, and doing developer tools that whole time, and then a couple of decades doing Microsoft kind of developer tools and services. And I am a developer at heart. Even though I'm a PM, I still think of myself as a software engineer. And so while I don't get to code very much in my day job, I do enjoy coding evenings and weekends. And I was on a different tooling team at Google at the time, and I saw Flutter in beta, and it was getting kind of a lot of attention for a pre-release technology. And so I started noodling with it, and I kind of fell in love. And so it happened that they were hiring a PM, and it was my manager turned out to be an old colleague of mine from Microsoft, and I lived in Seattle at the time, but the job was lots of going back and forth between Seattle and the Google headquarters in California and Portland, Oregon, where I have 2 kids. And all of it just was a fantastic team. It was a fantastic environment. It was a fantastic technology. How could I say no?
Right. So I don't know what exactly has been. I mean, is there is something with Flutter community that excites me and every other to stay with it. I don't know what is that, but we all enjoy very much with Flutter community, with this Flutter SDK, Flutter application. I don't know what is that, but that really excites us and that binds us with Flutter.
No, I think you're totally right. I think software is in general a hit-based business, right? Do you have the right solution to the right problem at the right time? And all of those matter, right? The right solution to the wrong problem doesn't help anyone. The right solution at the wrong time doesn't help anyone, right? I mean, it's very much kind of a confluence of events that are often outside of the control of the developer team of whatever the technology is. And Flutter got all 3 of those. The Flutter team is trying to solve a problem that we have been trying to solve as an industry for 20 years, right? How do you build, a front end that works across multiple platforms? And we've tried this a bunch of times and failed over and over, right? And there are plenty of technologies still today thriving and solving this problem. But watching the growth of Flutter and just seeing how fast it's growing in terms of the apps in the Play Store, how fast it's growing from a developer community point of view, and then how hard the Flutter team is working and pushing it to more and more platforms. And now we're having other people take Flutter and take it to more and more platforms, right? The announcement with Toyota bringing Flutter to the dashboard in your car. I mean, it's clearly taking on a life of its own at this point. And we're all kind of part of this virtual cycle of Flutter and Dart and the ecosystem and the apps and the timing and the usage, and it just feels like it's really a fun place to be right now.
Yeah, that's nice. So let's start with our Q&A session.
Sure.
And yeah, so what I'll do, I'll share my screen. Okay, yeah. Should I do it? Okay, is it visible to everyone? Okay, no problem. So I made this a little application by today. I guess it took around 2 hours to make that, and right now it is running on the Mac OS platform. Okay, and it is completely built in Flutter. And yeah, I will do it. I mean, I will make it open source in few days by doing some tweaks and making it good with the developers. Okay, so let's start with the first question for the Chris, and that is there a good way to have two Flutter web app instances to communicate with each other locally without internet connectivity?
Wow, you jumped right into the deep end of the pool there, didn't you?
Yeah.
I guess the thing that I would, I mean, you're fundamentally talking about peer-to-peer kind of connectivity technologies. And so I'm not actually up to date on what the latest peer-to-peer technologies are. I believe WebRTC is a peer-to-peer technology. So that's where I'd look myself. I'd actually be curious. I wonder if anyone has published a web plugin for Flutter on PubDev for WebRTC. That's actually where I'd start first. But if that's not available, then of course, like any Flutter platform, you can always write native code in JavaScript for Flutter Web and then call back and forth between Dart and JavaScript. So yeah, I think that's where I'd look. What are the right peer-to-peer technologies?
Yeah, but in addition to that, what we can also do, we can have a common server between two web applications.
Well, that isn't you could have a common server, but it would have to be running on the local machine.
Yeah.
Right. And so, I mean, both would work. I'm curious, actually, I'd be curious what problem they're trying to solve in that particular case. But I mean, we do this kind of thing ourselves. When we build dev tools, we build it in Flutter.
Yes.
And what we do is we have a common server that runs in the SDK, which is the Dart analyzer. And so when you're debugging a Flutter app, it has an instance of the Dart analyzer running as an internet service running locally. And then, your IDEs are talking to it and your dev tools are talking to it. So that's exactly the kind of thing that person is talking about. So that's an example of the solution you proposed. Absolutely. And so if you're curious about how to do that, of course, the dev tools source code is open source, so you can check that out.
Right. So everything in Flutter is open source, and guys, you can check it out and you can go into deeply and see what the Google developers are actually coding into Flutter SDK. Okay. So the next question is there a convenient way to manage flavors for development, production, build for our applications?
Yeah, flavors are harder than they should be. Absolutely. This is something that we worked hard to plumb through to make sure you could do it. but we haven't done that next step, which is to make it easy. So I guess the short answer is there a convenient way to manage? Not yet, but we could definitely do a better job there. Or actually, that would be an interesting place for a community member to dive in and figure out a better way to manage flavors than what we're doing.
Yeah. So Chris Sales is inviting everyone to work on this problem from the community. And yes, I guess there will be many people who are going to think on it, and I guess there will be many people who might be actually working on this kind of thing.
Well, you can imagine. I mean, flavors isn't something that most of our users use. However, for the folks that need it, it's super important. So we've made it work, but we haven't made it as easy as we could make it.
Right.
And in that case, the people that really, really need it turn out to be the best people to give us feedback on how to make it convenient.
Oh, right. And there is one more thing with the Flutter. So Flutter is so easy to work, so easy to learn. So whenever we work with Flutter, so we think, that is a natural thing, that we think everything would be easy with Flutter. So the flavors would be easy with Flutter. To sharing two instances or talking with each other would be easy.
We've set the bar too high. We've made Flutter too easy. So occasionally when there are some more difficult things, people are especially disappointed, and I can understand that.
Yeah. Okay, let's move to our third question, and that is how multi-threading works in Flutter. Works in Dart.
So we don't really have the concept of threads in Dart. What we have is this idea of isolates. The idea of an isolate is you can think of it as a logical thread, and I think most of our implementations are actually implemented in terms of physical threads. But the idea of an isolate is it's a barrier for communication, like a thread, and it's a separate execution environment, like a thread. But the key thing is in Dart, we don't allow you to just send a reference to memory between isolates like you can with a thread. And instead, what you have to do is you have to send messages back and forth between isolates. Now, in some cases, when you're doing high bandwidth communication, this can be slower, which is why somebody might want threads. However, in all cases, it is so much safer. And it's safer because you can't have multiple threads, reading and writing the same data, which requires synchronization primitives, and you have to worry about race conditions and deadlocks, and there's all kinds of terrible, really, really hard things you have to deal with. So the idea of isolates is for your typical client-side application, isolates are great because you want to say, hey, go run this, off the UI thread, which is really what you want. And
right.
They're great for. But the processing happens somewhere else, but you have a nice safe environment, and it's really, really difficult to write, code that's going to crash your apps, which is the converse of threads. Right, with threads, it's very, very easy to write code that's going to crash your app. So that's how to think about multi-threading in Dart.
Yeah, when I started working with the isolates, I had some experience with thread, so I was like, I can pass some instance and it will do some calculation and give that back to me. But when I started with isolates, I was like, something is a bit different here, and yeah, it took some time to figure it out. But yeah, in the end, the performance with the isolates was much better. If I had done that with the threads.
Oh yeah, no, it's really great because it allows you to take all the kinds of processing and get it off the UI thread and keep the UI thread running nice and smoothly while you're still, doing your processing. Yeah, from an ease of use and capability point of view, it's a really great mix.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go to our fourth question, and that is concerning the SEO canvas is not a great choice to implement. So how do we implement proper SEO with Flutter app? So there are lots of questions with the SEO for the Flutter web and yeah.
Yeah, so let me just put all of the SEO questions into a bucket and answer them all at once, which is the SEO problem is something that's well known by the Flutter team. In general, today, we're recommending that the kinds of apps you build with Flutter are the ones that you're less likely to care about SEO, if that makes sense. Typically, the kinds of things you care about on the web that have to do with SEO are document-based things, right? You have a bunch of documents or content, the flowy content with the text and the video and the images and things like that you read. And those kinds of things, SEO turns out to be super, super important. However, Flutter, there's a whole other class of things that people build and deploy on the web, which are really apps, rich, interactive, often multimedia applications that are all about, your data, your personal data, working with your own personal data that isn't focused around SEO, but rather, it's really an app that you happen to have deployed over the web, right? That's what Flutter is optimized for today. And so while SEO is on the roadmap for the future, for the Flutter web team, we don't have yet a good story for SEO, only because it doesn't really fit into the kinds of apps that we've optimized for Flutter on the web.
Yeah, but also we can do, the Flutter web supports the HTML thing. We can do some external coding by using JavaScript and HTML. So if I have whole application into Flutter, then I can try to implement that SEO using that.
You absolutely can do all those things, but that's a case where we know it's a feature that lots of people want, and so we'd like to provide a better solution for folks.
Right. Awesome. So let's go to our fifth question. Okay. That is, what's the best practice for separation of code and logic for different platforms in Codebase?
Yeah, it's interesting. Actually, the separation of, the separation of code and logic is tricky. I assume we mean the separation in code.
Yes. So it's like, let me explain a bit of it question. So it's like, I have two different types of implementation for fetching location for Android, iOS, and websites.
You're talking about platform specific code, right? Versus application generic logic.
Yeah.
Got it. So there's two ways you can do that. The underlying, there's two actually underlying primitive mechanisms that you can use to get to platform specific features, and then we'll talk about how you can package them and isolate them. So the two primary technologies are platform methods and Dart foreign function interfaces, FFI, or FIFI, as I've heard someone recently call it, which I really like. With platform channels and platform methods, the idea here is that you're in your Dart code and you want to have something execute in native land, but you don't know if native land is going to be Android or iOS or Windows or Mac or whatever, right? And they all do native things differently. So essentially, with the idea of a platform channel, you send a message, it lands in whatever implementation that you've shipped with your app, right? Every Flutter app, that when you target a specific platform, comes with something called the runner. And the runner is the native code that loads your Flutter code up. And if you want to, you can just leave the runner alone. You never have to look at that runner code. Or if you want, you can go and put whatever native code you want to in your runner. And it can talk to whatever native APIs it wants, and you send messages back and forth. Another way is FFI. And the FFI is essentially letting you get to any C callable interface that's on your platform. For example, most of the Windows APIs exposed as a C API, which with the Win32, it's the collection. It's a terrible name because, of course, we're at 64 bits and et cetera. But that's the general name for it, right? The Win32 API. And so you can not use message channels at all. Just call into these C APIs directly from your Dart code using FFI, and off you go. That's the underlying mechanism for getting to platform specific stuff. Now the question is, how do you package it? So even if you just want to keep this kind of native stuff in your app, you totally can. You can build a class that sends platform messages via the platform channels, and it will end up in the right native implementation. Or you could have a switch statement that says, oh, if I'm in Windows, make this FFI call. If I'm on Android, do this other thing, etc. You can do all of that. However, that you can only really use in your app. If you want to build something that's reusable, either by you and multiple projects, or you want to publish it on PubDev that has native code, then of course that's what a plugin is for. And a plugin is just a package of Dart code that has native code in it that it switches based on the platform. And so you can provide multiple implementations, one for Android, one for iOS, one for Windows, etc. And then the compiler will pull in the right stuff at compile time, so that when you target a specific app, it just brings in that implementation. So the right way to think about it is mostly, what's the technology I want to use? And then how do I package that? Do I just want to use it in my app, or do I want to stick it in some reusable hunk that I can use across multiple apps, or even publish on PubDev?
Okay. Nice. Okay, so we will prefer that solution that you just gave to us. Okay, and with that, let's move to our sixth question, and it is basically consists of two questions. Let's start with the first one. So when we say an app is portable to multiple platforms, does it mean that we can have underlying platform specific UI style?
Yeah, so you can. Right. We have two design languages, two widget sets in Flutter that implement two different design languages. We've got Material and we've got Cupertino. And a Material, of course, is very popular on Android, very popular on the web. And of course, Cupertino is the way that Apple recommends you do things on iOS and macOS. It's their design language. What we find more and more is that people are less interested in, hey, if it's running on iOS, show this style UI, and if it's running on Android, show that style of UI. Although you can do that with Flutter, you absolutely can, and there's lots of techniques and packages that make it easier for you to do that. What we find is that actually people want their app to look the same no matter what platform it's running on. Is it running on the web? Is it running on iOS or Android or Windows or whatever? They want it to look like, they don't want it to look like Material. They don't want it to look like Cupertino. What they want it to look like is their app, their design language, right? When you run, I'll pick one out of a hat, Netflix. When you run Netflix, it runs this, it looks the same no matter what, but it doesn't look like Material or iOS. It looks like Netflix, right? And more that's what people want. And so for that kind of thing, we have Material is very, very flexible. It comes out of the box with some opinions, but all of those opinions can be overwritten with your own opinions, with themes, heavily themable. I have seen people do amazing things with themes that make it look completely different than out of the box Material. So what I recommend is do what the big brands do, which is they care less about switching it to make it look like the underlying OS, and they want it to look like them, right? Their own design language.
Nice. And I guess companies do care about their brand.
Oh yes,
So
yes, they absolutely do. Companies care very deeply about their brands. Yes.
Yeah. Right. So let's go to our next question. That is, are there any specific steps to follow to publish mobile apps once it is developed?
Yes. Essentially what Flutter does is you can say, I want to build, an APK or an IPA or, an AR or, I want, well, we're talking about mobile. So, the various kinds of output binaries, you can build those in the command line with Flutter. But once you've done that, it's a native app. It's just like you fired up Xcode or Android Studio or whatever and started with the native API. It is a native app. It happens to come bundled with the Flutter library, which is the runtime for all of the native the code, the dark code that's been translated into native code. But other than that, it's a native app, runs against native APIs, uses runs at native speeds, etc. At that point, whatever you have to do with an AR or an IPA or APK that you would normally do, you have to do all those things. And of course, both the Apple Store and Google Play Store have a set of instructions. And when it asks for the binary, you hand it to your IPA or your APK, and it's just like it came from anywhere else. So those same old steps that you would do for a native is what you do with a Flutter app.
Yeah. So right after generating our builds, that is IPA or APK, we have to follow the standard procedure that has been given by Play Store or App Store.
That's right. Now there are some instructions to make sure that you are all set, making sure you're building an optimized release, etc. And we have instructions on flutter.dev that you'll want to check out to make sure you get the best possible binary before you upload it to the store. But after that, it's just like uploading any other binary to those stores.
Right. Okay. So let's move to our 7th question. That is Flutter a right choice for developing an e-commerce site?
Well, you have to take into account the person you're asking. By default, the answer of that kind of question is going to be hell yes, absolutely. Flutter is a fantastic choice. But as I say, you have to consider who you're asking. I think the question is, do we have the support in Flutter to build e-commerce apps? And the answer is yes. We have Google Ads, we have in-app purchases. We have the ways to monetize your app, and we have things like Stripe and other vendors that have built their SDKs to be immediately accessible to Flutter and easily accessible for Flutter for building e-commerce apps. And if you don't like those ways, that's okay. You can check on what else is on PubDev, or you can always drop down to the native API. Yes. Flutter is not only a fantastic option for e-commerce apps, but it is a fantastic option in that we've seen used over and over. Now, when it comes to apps versus sites, a lot of the plugins that I've mentioned are mobile, right? Mobile only. For example, we have an open beta for Google Ads that is right now just mobile only. So if you're talking about an e-commerce site for Flutter Web, well, remember, we just released the stable version of Flutter Web a couple weeks ago. So it's going to be a while before the whole ecosystem moves to add support for web, but that is definitely on our list. And it's not just us, right? It's the whole ecosystem that wants to help bring their stuff to Flutter Web.
Right. So let's move to our 8th question, and that is, does Flutter supports high refresh rates displays, such as mobile phones or PC displays?
Yeah, so one of the great things about Flutter is because we're generating native code, right? If you're running on PC, you're going to get x86 code. If you're running on mobile, you're going to get native ARM 64 code. You're going to get native code. So Flutter will run at whatever the native speed is. If you're running a device that supports 60 frames a second, that's how fast it's going to run. If it runs at 90 or 120 frames a second, that's how fast your Flutter app is going to run. So because it's native app, you get native speeds.
Nice. So is it like we have everything in Flutter right now?
Do we have everything in Flutter? Are you asking, should we build everything in Flutter? Or are you asking, has everything already been built in Flutter?
The second one.
The answer is obviously no. There are still apps in the world that have not been built in Flutter, but I assume that is merely a temporary situation.
Okay. So now there are another question with the Flutter Web, and I guess people are very, very enthusiastic and they want to see Flutter Web in stable and they want to use Flutter Web, and that is why we are saying so much questions related to Flutter Web. And the next question for Flutter Web is that is Flutter Web is ready for developing web games with the highest FPS?
That is an excellent question. We have built it to be great at apps, but there are definitely frameworks for Flutter for building games. I wouldn't expect 3D kind of Twitch games to work really well on Flutter Web, but absolutely 2D side scroller, casual, all of that I'd expect to be fantastic on Flutter Web, especially with the optimized canvas kit we released as part of the stable build of Flutter Web. So yeah, for those kinds of games, I think it'd be great. And I myself have built Backgammon, an online backgammon game in Flutter Web. And it's got the little animations as you take over pieces and things are moving all over. And I can't tell it from a performance point of view. I can't tell the difference between the Flutter Web version and the native desktop version.
Well, is it been released to websites? So can we have that URL to?
Oh, I'm happy to share it with you. You bet.
So what is that? I mean, I can share that with the screen. I mean, to the people.
Oh, sure.
Should I open my Chrome?
Sure. Let me. I'll share it with you. Let me chase down the URL. I forgot. It's.
Yeah, sure. Take your time. Take your time.
Yeah. No, I'll pull it up for you. You bet.
So what I'll do, let's see this. Let's have a next question till you have your URL ready with you.
So go ahead. I can do two things here.
Yeah. Okay. So another question is very, very, kind of question that is, can we build Flutter OS that uses Dart?
Well, Flutter as a front end for an OS, say a shell, would be fantastic. We could absolutely do that. It doesn't have the things you need in it to be an operating system. For example, it doesn't have a loader, right? A thing that loads code into memory, right? I mean, you still need an operating system. But you could absolutely imagine that Flutter is the native UI for some future operating system. I think that would be fantastic. Yes. And if you look at the chat, I put my little backgammon game. If you want to check it out.
Yes. So let me go here.
And just by the way, this is actually built and released with a pre-release version of Flutter. I haven't updated it to Flutter 2 yet, so we'll see. We'll see how well I did. It looks like
my internet. Okay. So how to play this game?
Yeah, it doesn't really make sense unless you know how backgammon works. So you see all of the yellow pieces there?
Yes.
Those are all your possible moves. So click on one of them. And then it shows you where you can move it. So click on, there you go. And so there you go. Now you've got those possible moves. No, the yellow pips, the triangles are the possible. Now click on the dice when you're done. And now it's Black's turn.
Okay.
And Black goes the other way. So if you click on there, it'll give you your possible moves. And notice it does the animations and.
Wow, yeah. I was actually looking at the animation.
In the upper right-hand corner, it turns out that different people like the board oriented in different ways. So in the little circly thing in the upper right-hand corner there of the screen.
This one?
Yeah, click that. Oh, yeah, there you go. It rotates the board.
Wow.
So you click that again, it'll rotate it again.
Nice. I'll share this link with in our chats so that people can have that. Okay. Nice. I love it. So I'll try to learn the backgammon and I'll try to play this game.
There you go.
Okay. Yeah. So next question is, can we develop Chrome extensions using Flutter?
Probably, because fundamentally a Chrome extension is JavaScript and HTML and CSS. I've never built one myself, but of course the output of any Flutter web app you build is JavaScript and HTML. So theoretically, sure. This is not something the team has tested or supports, but I'd love to see if somebody can do it. You bet.
Awesome. So now communities have a lots of things to test it out.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine, people trying and, a big blog post that says, hey, here's what you have to do. Would it be cool if the Flutter team, did this, this, and this, and made it super easy and blah, blah, blah. Who knows, right? If somebody would take up that challenge and decide to use Flutter Web to build a Chrome extension. I'd be curious to see if they did.
We have a small example of the generative arts that people are doing with Flutter.
I know. I was watching your a little bit of the last talk with Deven.
With Deven.
That was pretty cool. That was pretty cool stuff.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So we have our next question. I mean, I asked this question to Deven, and he told me to ask you this question. That is, what approach to properly manage the tree shaking for an application that targets several platforms?
So the hope is that tree shaking is not something you have to manage at all. It's just you write your code and you use the features that you need and the resources that you need, and then we pick it up and shake it, and everything you don't need falls on the floor. Hopefully, you don't have to do a thing for that to work.
Right. So we can let Flutter team to manage the tree checking for us, and we can have our focus on building real-time applications.
Yeah, and that's the whole point, right? That you can write, your Flutter app using Dart and all the recommended best practices. And what we'll do is when we compile it into release mode, we'll just take over and optimize it as much as we possibly can, and you just get the benefit. And every time, and this happened recently, every time our tree shaking is better, then your app gets better.
It's awesome. So yeah, this was the last question for you by the Flutter team. And yeah, so do you have anything extra to add into this, or do you want to share something with our audience?
I actually would like to thank your audience. I know how huge Flutter has become in India. I know how enthusiastic India has been about Flutter, and it is fantastic to see. I've been to India. I really that was a very memorable trip, and it is awesome to see so much passion and enthusiasm in India for the technology. We build Flutter for the world, and it's great to see what you're doing with it. And keep the feedback coming. Keep the PRs coming. Keep building packages and plugins. Keep pushing on us to do more. Keep helping us to do more by contributing to Flutter and to the ecosystem. It is fantastic to see your enthusiasm. It is wonderful to have you help with your contributions to make Flutter as great as we possibly can make it.
I want to say thank you from all Indians.
You're very welcome.
Okay, and let me share one more thing, that guys do follow Chris, and I am sharing his Twitter account, that is @csales. Okay, follow him on Twitter, and yeah, if you have any question, ask him.
You bet.
About the Flutter.
I mean, my answer might be I don't know, but I'll happily answer.
That's nice. That's nice. Okay, so thank you, Chris, for being here, and we are grateful to have you.
Very happy to be here. Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, so now we have another team member, Yash Adulkar, to resume our stream. So Yash, what's next?
So there is actually a surprise. So like our main of the sessions have been over, so I'm pretty sure audience will thinking like, let's move on. So I have a
Yeah.
screen. Yeah. Vivek, can you share my screen?
Yes, and it is blank.
So just wait, guys. For
Okay, that was prank.
I'll say just wait for a minute. There is a huge surprise that has been coming up, and we have actually like found something that has been actually useful. And if Chris is there, I will surely ask Chris to also wait and see what is the new surprise that Flutter Mumbai has brought for our Flutter developers. So Flutter jobs. So this is a surprise that we have brought for each and everybody. So what exactly is it? I would like to tell people. So as you all know, during COVID sessions, a lot of people have lost job. But with that, the Flutter is also new, and a lot of Flutter developers have come up during COVID sessions. People have started learning Flutter.
Yeah.
So, but also learning Flutter is very nice, but you also need some projects. You also need jobs to handle work. So for all of the Flutter developers, some people have actually created this website. This is a web application, Flutter Jobs, and it is created actually using Flutter itself. So they
Oh, wow.
actually have a hashtag. The hashtag is that, jobs for Flutter developers by Flutter developers. So it is a shout
Isn't it
out.
too long? Isn't it too long? The hashtag.
Yeah, it is actually. But then what to do?
Okay. But it's nice to see that someone built the Flutter jobs. I guess it is website, right? Flutterjobs.io.
Yeah, it
A
is a website.
website in Flutter. Yeah, that's nice.
That's actually nice, and they have been working since so long. And so, if you want, we can also join the screen. Also, like I would like to talk more, but before that, I would like to thank our sponsors. Our today's sponsor is StreamYard, with whom we have been sharing the screen. We have JetBrains and the Agile Company. So, guys, you can also visit our sections at different platforms. We have our Twitter, Meetup, YouTube, as well as Telegram. So, before leaving, like, thank you guys for coming. This is the end of the session, but before leaving, I would like to share my screen again and show you something.
Okay, someone asked the job list is currently empty. Is it work in progress?
So, guys, actually, the launch of Flutter Job is actually right now. It is actually going on by Flutter Mumbai itself. So the website has been launched, and by the time it will start adding the recruiters as well as the job list and the members as well. So with the time, like with all the support of all the developers from Flutter developers and Flutter entrepreneurs, we can surely start with this great platform and start working with it. And I mean, I will surely like to join this platform and find some job for me, because I'm looking, and I just completed my engineering and I'm looking for a job right now. So I will surely like to join this platform, and I'm pretty sure even you guys. So what are your thoughts about this platform, Vivek?
I guess it is good if I can have some unique jobs, because many job sites have some fake jobs, or they don't reply you very soon, or some kind of bluff stuff. So if this website can solve all my problem and can connect me with the recruiter that want a Flutter developer, then it is a good platform for me. And also it is made in Flutter, and it is for Flutter, it is by Flutter developers, and I have an emotional connection to this website.
I can surely understand that. Actually, even I am emotionally connected with it, because what I've seen is that a lot of times when I try to find the jobs, they have given that we need different technologies and everything. And when they ask us to just work on single technology, but over here you have the dedicated technology for working. It's not like you have to go on other different platforms. You have to study different of things. You are a Flutter developer, just go to Flutter Jobs, get a Flutter job from Flutter Jobs itself.
Okay. Nice. So I have a question. I mean, we have a question from Tushar Nikam. Okay, that can we contribute the Flutter job website? I mean, he's asking to contribute into the website development.
So, Tushar, I'm actually sorry, because first of all, we Flutter Mumbai are actually just a partner. We are not related to Flutter Jobs any way. There are some developers who have created this. Second thing, it is a company and it has actually been private, so it is not an open source project for anybody. So we can't comment on that.
Yeah, well, you can contribute to the Flutter job website by adding yourself as a participant or yourself as a job recruiter.
Yeah, definitely you can do that.
Okay, nice.
So,
So what's next?
so
I mean, do you
that
have
was-
anything else to add to the Flutter job website? I mean, I'm amazed to see that you guys have built this website into Flutter.
So, like, I would like to correct yourself. So sorry, but I am not the creator of the website. I
mean,
just
someone.
Yeah, the developers actually.
Yeah.
Like, I'm very happy for the people who have created a website. So I will just share the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Someone asking, can I post jobs on that?
We surely like to answer. So, guys, as you can see, we have the options for that. Actually, it is a perfect timing to ask the question because over here itself, I have the tab to post the jobs, and above I can log in. So what I have seen is that I think this is for the people who want to search the job, the users. You can log in over here. If you don't have the login, you can create an account. Second thing, if you want to post a job, you can go over here. You can recruit. You can register yourself as an individual or your company. You can create an account and post a job in that. So I haven't actually created this account, and I'm actually looking forward to it today. So this is from my side right now.
Okay, so everyone go onto that website, add yourself as a recruiter or as a job finder, and let's see if this website can help you in getting your dream job or your first Flutter job or your next Flutter job.
Well, I do hope it lets me find my first Flutter job.
All the best.
All the best, guys. So all the best to everybody who are searching for Flutter jobs, and you can definitely go on flutterjobs.io and you can register yourself and start finding the cool Flutter jobs. So best of luck, guys. Best of luck for your contributions. Thank you very much. Also, there is an announcement. If anybody wishes to contribute to any project, or if you feel that you want your project to be showcased in Flutter Mumbai, you can really contact us, and we'll surely like to showcase a project and help you in contributing your project from Flutter Mumbai. So thank you, guys. Have a nice day, and the dice is to you.
Yeah, thank you guys for staying with us for so long. So I guess it is a 2 hours event. Yeah, 2 hours, 2 minutes. Okay, and till then, bye bye. Keep fluttering, and we will bring more things into Flutter Mumbai. So keep updated with Flutter Mumbai. Bye bye.
Bye, guys.